Welcome to the Newsweek Lead, listeners.
Our ambition must be to lead the national government. That is the next chapter in our party's proud history.
Well, the Democratic Alliance led a landmark elective Congress over the past weekend, leaving it with an introspective question. In this new Geordin Hill-Lewis era, can the DA shed its stigma of being a 20% party mostly for whites? We'll take stock with our acting political editor, Carol Paton, who's been following the DA campaign trail in Soweto today.
The other thing that the DA used to do back in the day when it was trying to attract black voters was, to shout a mandla every 5 minutes at its Congress and sing, ANC freedom songs. And all of that's gone. It's so much more genuine now that, you kind of, yes, they dance to pop songs and so on, but instead of toying, but they have a great time. And it's maturing as a party, and it is kind of building a kind of South African identity.
Later in our training topic, was the motive work-related or personal? That's the question now, following a hit on the Emfuleni Council's finance clerk. And finally, Madiba announced the end of his second marriage with On This Day in South African history.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.
In Rauby's Pointless Dry Quiz today, it's an easy one, man. Who's the box scrum off returning to the domestic SA rugby scene this June? I'll give you that answer at the end of the show. My name's Graeme, this is The Lead, and this is the South African story. Moving to our top story today, she spent the afternoon following the DA's new leader, Geordin Hill-Lewis, as well as the DA Josie Merrill candidate, Helen Zille, on their walkabout of Soweto, campaigning for fresh DA votes for the upcoming municipal polls. She's our acting political editor, Carol Paton, and she's live on the line now from a rainy Johannesburg today. Carol, how's it going?
Great, thanks, Graeme. Yeah, exhausting, but quite exciting weekend with the DA really pumping up the volume in all respects. And again, on the campaign trail this morning, they're tireless. Even 75-year-old Gogozilla, she's up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. When she's not, of course, wading through massive potholes and donning scuba gear whilst at it. Look, how was it like on the campaign trail today? Like, what struck with you in terms of them doing door-to-door canvassing in Soweto? What was like the major takeaway for you?
Well, they do have activists. This is the thing. They do actually have activists. It's hard to judge how many they have because, this was just in one area. This was in Pimville. And so it's hard to judge exactly what the organizational strength is. And I shouldn't think it's immense. But the point is they do have activists and people who've been working with them for years, who are quite well versed in the party and who are quite excited about the party. So I think that's the kind of the main thing. And they feel at home. The other thing really is that they're both Helen Zille and Geordin Hill-Lewis pretty at home in the township kind of vibe, township setting. They enjoy it. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of them have crisscrossed South Africa to some degree in their own respective past roles. But look, going into the Congress this weekend, as per my Thursday chat with Bongokile Matrupe, our deputy politics editor, we largely expected Geordin Hill-Lewis to come out. But I think the proof was going to be, to some extent, about which way the DA wind will blow next, was going to be in Geordin Hill-Lewis's speech. What did you make of it?
There was one surprise in the elections, which was Soli Msimanga beating Ivan Mayer, who's somewhat of a veteran in the DA. And I think I've heard it was quite a surprise. He didn't expect it. And I think there was certainly elation on the Congress floor. So that that's a big development.
Something that struck me in terms of News 24 coverage, the DA in the demographics of its Congress delegates displayed across the front page of News 24 this weekend shows a lot of diversity within the party among the delegates and racial inclusivity. The main thrust has been for the longest time, of course, we know is for the DAs, and how did they change the narrative as a party that it's been, historically viewed as a more white party. Helen Ziller, in her interviews with News 24, has been quite emphatic that they've worked hard to focus internally the DA on merits of people as opposed to race, and rather seeing race and gender first before engaging with certain matters. That rather a person is a person, and then they should be seen within the merit of what they can offer. And I think that's been a very interesting conversation to see all of that emerge quite starkly at this Congress.
Yeah, it has, although just bear in mind, the DA do love to say that they are the most diverse party, and I think they are in terms of sort of the sort of across the rainbow kind of representation of South Africa's sort of racial communities. But that said, they're still very underweight on Black Africans, both in the leadership and in the ranks. So even though they were there at the conference and engaging and debating DA politics, which was quite a new thing actually, and you can see they're at home in the party; it's their home. They're quite comfortable there. But yeah, I think the DA is still underweight there. And I think the jury's still out on the issue of whether a Black representation of leadership matters. So, if you look at the top echelon of DA leaders, there are only 3 kind of Black Africans, which is Solly Blatsi, Salim Samang, and Sibiwe Rauby. So, yeah, still lightweight on, in terms of the biggest demographic group of the country. And, the DA's consistently maintained that, they are diverse and, it doesn't necessarily help to have a Black leader. That's not that's kind of superficial. And we'll see in the election as to whether that's true or not.
Yeah. And then honing in on Geordin Hill-Lewis's speech, you penned this fantastic piece for News 24 today, Carol. Basically, honing in on the fact that Geordin Hill-Lewis is pushing for a lot more empathetic, a lot more warmer approach about meeting people face to face and attracting more voters like that. And that's been, quite a hallmark of how he does business as a mayor in Cape Town, is it not?
Yeah. So both in his sort of own personal approach, but also in his values, and then in the kind of way he wants to position the party. So, he wants to kind of reposition the party as a party that is welcoming, that is warm, that is empathetic, that cares about people, that is seen to be caring about people because it's there in communities doing work, helping people. And I think that's quite a difference. And I think it does come from his kind of his Christian faith and the fact that he gives his liberal values a kind of Christian spin. So yeah, I think that will see a different DA. Whether that, to extent to which that sort of filters through, it's interesting now to hear Helen Ziller talking about it because that was actually not what she said before. That was never her emphasis. That that they were going to be look at each person for their own individual worth. That was never the thrust of her message. So yeah, it's rubbing off already on the leadership. The extent to which it rubs off sort of like more broadly across the country, we're still going to see.
Yeah. What is the messaging or the general themes or slogans based on the DA's current strengths and the takeaways you took from the Congress that the DA needs to really focus on in terms of grassroots issues to try and attract more Black voters, to move away from being perceived at this limited 20% party? What are those things, to your knowledge, Carol?
Well, I think that, a lot of their campaigning in the past has focused on sort of how bad the ANC is, how much better they are compared to how bad the ANC is. And people don't really need to be told that the ANC is not good at governing. And especially if they were previous ANC voters, you don't want to be told as well that the ANC's terrible, rather focus on the positive stuff. Because if you're saying, well, the ANC's terrible and corrupt and useless and so on, then you're kind of saying, well, so are the people who voted for it, kind of thing. And so that's not going to be the approach. The approach is going to be much more like, we're here to change South Africa. We can do it. Come in, join us. We can do this together. And then I think a genuine attempt to build trust in communities, and trust, as Geordin Hill-Lewis said at the Congress, trust is earned, and that does mean doing consistent, ongoing work in communities, being there. When there's a shack fire, when there's some sort of disaster, when there's a horrendous crime committed, within a community, being there and showing you care, and doing what you can to help. We'll see if that rubs off, because if that does rub off, and the ANC and the DA's got, does quite well in the election and gets a lot of councillors, and they're out there doing this kind of work, I think then the DA will start changing that perception that it's not a party for everyone, it's just a party for white people. And they're trying to, which is obviously, the biggest blockage that they've got to doing better in at the polls.
In both of our respective interviews and learning a bit more about what he's going to be doing next, Geordin Hill-Lewis has stuck to his guns. He's emphatic. He's going to run again for mayor for the Democratic Alliance. He wants to stay on as Cape Town mayor. But of course, the DA is at this very interesting time in its history that it is also part of a national coalition, and any political party that is serious about, governing and being a real contender, or perhaps even leading South Africa, would need to have eyes and ears inside those very important cabinet meetings. I mean, if Jordan's not there, who's going to be his ears and eyes? Carol, do we know yet?
Yeah, he's interesting because, when we were on this trip this morning, I asked him that. So what they will do is the DA caucus will elect a parliamentary leader, someone who leads them in parliament. But he will have someone who is his designate in the cabinet. And I think even though he's not actually in the cabinet because he's a deputy minister, I get the sense that it would be Ashil Sarapin, because Ashil Sarapin would then be the second most, they'd be the highest. I mean, without Hill-Lewis in the executive, Sarapin would be the most senior DA official within the executive. So it would be I think it'll be him. And I asked him who's his main confidant. Like, who do you call when you haven't got a whole lot of time to consult a lot of people, and you just want some advice on something. He says, well, that person is Ashil. So I think that's going to be a very important relationship. And for listeners who don't know, I mean, Ashil Sarapin was just elected chair of the Federal Council.
Helen Zille's previous
Council
position
is kind of like the secretariat. Yeah, so he's like the Secretary General of the party. Very, very powerful, very influential, very important, and a massive elevation, and a real changing of the guard in the DA.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, he's been Deputy Finance Minister, but that doesn't mean, he's been because deputy ministers don't sit on cabinet meetings, he has been privy to that in the past. So then the question also becomes, and there's, I understand already a lot of whisperings in regards to this, but, a changing of faces within the DA ministerial posts that currently make up the percentage that the DA holds for the GNU in its current form to be a reality. And that could potentially change as well. But I think GHL keeping his cards close to his chest for now, Carol?
Well, I did ask him because I think it is controversial that Ashra Sarapan is going to be the federal council chair, and he's also going to be, and he also he's insisting that he should remain as the deputy finance minister. While his predecessor in the party was Helen Ziller, and Helen Ziller did that job in a very full-time way. So the expectation was that Ashra Sarapan would then resign from as deputy minister, which Geordin Hill-Lewis asked him today. He said no, he doesn't think that that's going to be necessary. So definitely he's seeing Ashra as playing a very critical role within that kind of executive structure. I think if you ask anyone in the DA what's going to happen, then they all say, I think there'll be a lot of changes. But then, everyone keeps saying there are going to be a lot of changes, but no one can really venture as to what those changes are going to be. So we know there's some ministers that Geordin Hill-Lewis hasn't actually had a great relationship with. So will they go? We know he's got better relationships with some of the Western Cape people in the Western Cape provincial legislature. Will they be brought in? And then you've also got to consider the fact that, it takes a minister quite a long time, I would say a year almost, to get to grips with their portfolio and to sort of actually, feel comfortable running it. And that's, we haven't got a whole lot of time to waste. Yeah. So that has to be the kind of the consideration that they weighed up against.
Yeah, I've also seen the reports that the DA's Western Cape Education MEC, of course, a former member of Parliament. I think he was on the Finance Portfolio Committee for a really long time. David Mania could be brought into the fold somehow. I mean, he is at this point a very senior, long-standing member of the Democratic Alliance, especially in the Western Cape swing of things. Carol, let's move to this. Any other big changes? I thought some of the constitutional amendments, one or two we can quickly focus on. There was quite a lot more support at the end of the day on paper to support this proposal to create a deputy for Geordin Hill-Lewis, because the DA, unlike many other parties, does not have a deputy national leader. That failed because it needed a 2/3 majority. How important would it be to have it or not to have it? What's your take here?
I think the DA structures are quite confusing,
100%.
And so there was this push at the Congress to say, well, let's have a deputy. And I think that the people who wanted that, often these things are done because there's a certain person they want to bring in there, So I think that was Solium Samang's people sort of, trying to get him, knowing that he's not going to win against Geordin Hill-Lewis, trying to get him in the door through some other method. But because the contest against Ivan Meyer was certainly no kind of clear there wasn't a clear predictive outcome. So yeah, that was that. But as you say, 2/3 majority is needed because it's a constitutional change. So that's quite a lot. And so that didn't fly.
But something that was passed, is the policing and punishing of those DA members who perhaps might leak critical Democratic Alliance information. Yeah. That was brought by well-known advocate Glynis Breitenbach, right?
That's right. So there were quite a few clamping down on the caucus, the DA caucus in Parliament, and trying to get some discipline in there. The DA's had their fair share of disciplinary hearings and controversies and scandals, actually, since coming into government. So these things are concerns, and they're trying to kind of clamp down on that party discipline. But I mean, as you know, I mean, the bigger a political party gets, the more potentials for leaking there are. And people leak to journalists, for instance, because, you know, they feel it's within their interest. So you've always got compete. By their nature, political parties have got internal competition and factions within them. So I don't think, you know, any amount of threats will shut down the leaking. I think I think we're safe there, Graeme.
Damn it, man. Those pesky journalists. Okay, let's end off here. The one takeaway thing, Carol, you've been doing journalism, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 30 years now. You know, you've seen a lot of different...
Don't even tell me. Don't remind me.
And you've seen numerous, you know, big leaders come and go. Yeah, I'm sorry. And you see numerous big leaders come and go. You've been to, you know, all the main congresses and conferences. You know, what struck with you? What stuck with you at this particular DA Congress? What was the one thing you were like, this is actually quite interesting?
You know, they always found that the DA's claim to be a liberal party has been somewhat thin, put it that way. And that, you know, the kind of commitment and even the understanding of liberalism doesn't go very much further than the top layer. And I did find at this Congress there was quite a lot more depth in the members, and it seems to be maturing. The other thing that the DA used to do back in the day when it was trying to attract black voters was, you know, to shout a mandla every 5 minutes at its Congress and sing, you know, ANC freedom songs, and all of that's gone. And it was, you know, it's so much more genuine now that, you know, you kind of, yes, they dance to pop songs and so on, but instead of toying, but they have a great time, and it's maturing as a party, and it is kind of building a kind of South African identity as a sort of variant of the Liberal Party, which is great. It's great for democracy, and it looks like a strong party. It looks like it's going to go from strength to strength. So that's another very good thing for democracy.
Yeah. Immediately as you spoke about the Amandla songs, I remember it came straight to mind. Don't ask me where my brain conjured it up, but the Helen Zille used to come out to an Afrikaans song called Cookie Lookie. Did that play at the Congress?
I don't think they did, but I might be, could be mistaken. What they did play, which is Helen Zille's signature tune, which you're going to be hearing a lot more than you want to hear this year, is Brenda Fassie's Vulindlela. So that obviously played. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen, you should have a look online for some of the videos of Helen Zille singing Brenda Fassie's Vulindlela. Yeah, those are pretty hilarious.
What do we call Helen Zille? Ma grrr instead of ma brrr. Anyway, that's my attempt at humor for today. Carol, thank you so much. She's our acting political editor at News 24. She's book, man. She wants to go and have a nap. She's been tuckered out. She's been working.
No, my work is never done. My work is never done.
Trending topic.
Moving to our trending topic, and what's the motive, work-related or personal? I suppose that's the question now as speculation mounts following a hit on the Emfuleni Council's finance clerk. News 24 journalist Ntwahai Saleka reports that 40-year-old Martha Ransofu, a mom of one, was assassinated late March at a tyre shop in Vandervale Park. Ransofu's work as a junior finance administrator focused on debt issues in the Gauteng Municipality, and it's understood that the provincial political killing task team is now leading the investigation. Well, Rantsofu was laid to rest over the past weekend, while at the same time, Emfuleni municipal spokesperson Makosonke Sangweni told Seleka the following, quote unquote, "It's worrying that the media wants to make a story about this while there are many other deaths in society and the municipality. This makes us believe News 24 is targeting Emfuleni for political agendas. No further comment on this matter except that the media can contact the family for any other information." End quote. Well, we only need to remind Sangweni about the News 24 Hunted series, which details the assassination of a Kuruleni financial auditor, Mpho Mafole, to understand that we, as the media, have the right to ask pertinent questions. And more importantly, every murder in South Africa indeed deserves the right course of attention to ensure that case is cracked and the public is informed. You would agree, Sangweni? What say you? Drop us a comment below.
And finally,
ending off now with On This Day in South African History, it's good to see the SA History online database. Well, Madiba announced the end of his second marriage on this day, the 13th of April, 1992. The shock news came just 2 years after Nelson Mandela and Winnie Madikizela Mandela were famously pictured with their fists thrust in the air, with Mandela emerging from the then Victor Verster prison outside Paarl in the Western Cape. Madiba and Winnie were by 1992 34 years together. They wed in the year 1958 before Madiba was arrested just 4 years later and then spent pretty much the rest of his life until 1990 behind bars. Well, they've had 2 children together, Zanani as well as Zinzi. The pair initially separated before finalizing their divorce in the year 1996, and Madikizela Mandela never remarried, whilst Madiba went on to take the hand of former First Lady of Mozambique, Graça Machel, famously in 1998. In fact, all in all, Madiba's been wed thrice, and he had 6 biological children. In Rauby's Pointless Braai quiz today, who's the box scrum off returning to the domestic SA rugby scene this June? Well, it's none other than Faf the clerk. Well, it's been announced that he'll be joining the Cheetahs, ditching his Yokohama Eagles jersey. Faf is 35 this year, and as News 24 Sports' Kanyiso Chwaku reports, the clerk only featured in 2 out of the last 14 Springbok tests of last year, so his move back to a domestic side that sorely needs a boost appears rather strategic for Faf's pursuits in rugby next. If this was your answer all along, congrats! You score that priceless prize of being the most informed person around the Braai place. If you've got anything on your chest you'd like to share with us, you know what to do. Drop us a mail at thelead@24.com. Otherwise, you can find us on all these various platforms wherever you may be listening to us, whether that's Spotify, Apple or YouTube. Drop us a comment below. We'd also like to take this opportunity to tell you that The Lead is quality checked by a senior member and or editor of News 24, and we generally adhere to the basic rules that are set out by the Press Ombudsman as well as the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. My name's Graeme, and so long as there's trusted news first, we'll always have The Lead.